Soule. He's Senior Strategic Analyst at L'Atelier BNP Paribas US. Since 2015, he has been leading the analyst team of L'Atelier BNP Paribas in San Francisco and has been involved in the fintech community both in Europe and the US. Matthew was vice president and prior to that in charge of the International Relations and New Technologies program at the Open Diplomacy Institute. Welcome.
So it's a pleasure to be there. I will just start briefly introducing myself. L'Atelier is the innovation lab for BNP Paribas Group, so one of the largest banks from Europe. I'm based in San Francisco. And what I will show you, in fact, is the kind of work we are doing and what we are very enthusiastic about for the blockchain. So L'Atelier, in fact, is not just looking at financial services. We are looking at different industries. And when we started, in fact, looking at the blockchain, obviously there was a lot of financial services. I will come back to that. But we realized quickly there was a lot of different use cases and applications in different industries. If you're looking on the retail side, you have some announcements very recently about Walmart that were looking at supply chain applications, potentially with China. If you were looking at the healthcare, the same stuff, smart cities, etc. So you're seeing, in fact, blockchain abilities, in fact, to look at much more than just transaction and financial services and go beyond. If you're looking at financial services, so it's a picture that I did, in fact, at a conference 2 years ago. You were finding there was a lot of applications from exchanges, use of Bitcoin to do international remittances, settlements, etc. So you could see it was 2 years ago. If I was using another mapping, I think it would be not enough on the screen. What is interesting from my perspective is we are moving on, in fact, from the financial services use cases, which are true. There is application in banking, insurance, etc. But there is other applications that there were a couple of years ago, in fact, more fictions, and then now we are seeing it live, and there is some very strong deployment. Just to consider, you had a lot of different discussions this morning. What is interesting to notice about the blockchain is not just related the intrinsic value you associated with the coins technically, could be, yes, kind of in terms of value of money, but what I'm putting in the back, it's digital certificate, it could be kilowatts, it could be different, in fact, digital assets. And I want to just let you know, in fact, and keep in mind the digital asset for the next the rest of the presentations, is technically you could associate with the blockchain in terms of distributed ledgers, different value, storing of value or information that doesn't have something to relate with a financial transaction. So the first example I will take, that's one that is in the US from Brooklyn in New York, is fascinating at the moment, a lot of the energy sector. The starting point, in fact, is not related to the blockchain itself, is they want to build a peer-to-peer energy ecosystem, especially relying on solar panel, and they want peer-to-peer, meaning that they want people, in fact, to be able to sell or buy, in fact, electricity between the sides. So it was, the company is called LO3 Energy, and that they work with Siemens, and they are looking, in fact, at expansion. And I will just use this.
If you go down to the cellar on a day like this, you will see that the meter is going backwards. So we are an energy supplier.
Now with new technologies, you can tie my solar panels in with the solar panels a few of my neighbors have installed and create something called a microgrid.
So microgrid's an energy community, that's forming around the idea that you can produce local renewable energy.
So what the tag element and the transactive platform enables us to do is records the excess electricity that a system such as Eric's PV panel here produces. It puts it on the blockchain and facilitates exchanges, transactions between neighbors.
And it would also stimulate, neighbors and neighbors to install solar panels potentially, and so that we could all benefit from.
So what you're seeing in the videos are just talking about the use cases, almost not about how it's working from a technology perspective, and that's what I'm very interesting as an analyst for me, is there is underlying technology, there is some issues about the technology used, etc. But the use cases actually is to build for social good, in fact, a better access to energy and being able to do it peer-to-peer. The other one that I found very fascinating, it's another country, another continent, is in Africa. There is a lot of issue around education and the financing of education. Why? The governments are already spending sometimes millions or billions of dollars in terms of financing, in fact, educations to get people on that. One of the first issues they have, they want to be sure their money they are spending is going in the right hands first, and they want also to be sure that when they are paying for education, the kids are spending time with that. The company is called itself Enply, as they are based in South Africa. What they want to put in place, in fact, and it's coming back to one of the discussion around identity, they want to be sure that there is the children that are taking educations, they can notice, thanks to a mobile app, in fact, the teacher, in fact, are saying basically this kid spend 2-3 hours of time learning, in fact, on that. This application with the mobile will be put in the blockchain, and thanks to a smart contract, in fact, will technically send the money or confirm the transfer of money to the family. That's a very simple use cases. They started, in fact, to enroll 2,000 children on the platform, so it's something that's ongoing. The UNICEF spent some money on the startup itself because they found it very interesting, and it's exactly this kind of systems that is relying, in fact, there is a blockchain that has a trusted, I would say, ledger, and the interaction to basically put information or I would say, act or automate some of the decision making is done through mobile applications. And the last one I wanted to show you, it's another area, it's in Singapore. It's a company called Autonomous. So what Autonomous wants to design and wants to do is democratizing the creation of a company. It's general in different countries. It's, you have to sign and enter a lot of information. You have different papers to do. What they want to simplify, in fact, is how to open basically a new company. So the first thing they are doing is this one, online formation. So you're just entering the data into the system, and it could be as opening basically an online account. The second one is defining the governance itself of the company, meaning who is technically the shareholders, what are their rights, etc. And you have different ways also to encrypt that. And the last part is what is relying a lot on the blockchain too. It's what they call automated governance. So they want to associate with the shares, kind of smart contract, in fact. So they want to automate some of the decision making in between the different shareholders. And if there is a decision made, there will be an impact, in fact, on the company itself. That was a project started 2 or 3 years ago in Singapore. They're still live. What is interesting is a couple of weeks ago, as they announced, and Dubai, as you may know, Dubai is doing a lot of investment to design the future government, the future city. And part of this effort, the Dubai economy signed a memorandum of understanding with Autonomous because they wanted potentially to use Autonomous and one other company to facilitate, in fact, the procedures, processing, etc. So in a nutshell, what is interesting for me in terms of social goods, you could see, in fact, beyond the transactions and the financial aspect of it, there is a different way, in fact, to distribute information and also to put information thanks to the blockchains. And we are just at the beginning. You could see 3 different continents, many different applications, and I think part of the research community should look much more into that because there is a lot of goods that can happen thanks to that. Thank you for your time.